Dust off your jerseys, grab your upkeep caps. Got the whole team ready, no turning back. From the hardwood floors to the diamond bright, we're here to talk sports all day and night. Yeah, it's a sports show, from the opening tip to the final, we're with you.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Catch Up with Cody Podcast Live. I'm your host, as always, Cody. We have another guest today, Matt from Don't Know Grit. This guy, before we got on air, like I called him, he's pretty much the genius of Detroit Lions. Any information about him. So thank you for coming on. I was actually super excited for this one because I am also a Lions fan. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain, and there's a lot going on in this offseason. So I'm excited to see where you stand on things with Detroit. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
My name is Matthew. I have a channel called Don't Know Grit. I am Lions focused. I don't know if I would call myself a genius. We might be setting the bar a little high to start the show. But I do really like football. I really like the Lions. In fact, the genesis of my channel was my wife got tired of me talking to her about analytics and everything in football. So I literally came home from work one day to a ring light waiting for me, and she told me to start making TikToks because I had to find someone else to talk to.
There you go. Hey, you got to start somewhere, and that is the perfect way to start it. So, but let's really get into this. So obviously, the big news that's been happening in the offseason is Terrion Arnold. That was the one thing I did want to start with, because what is your take on it? I feel like some days it feels like it's a major news issue thing, and then there's other days where I'm like, is this just another NFL player getting in trouble? Let's talk about it and then move on to the next.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? And I mean, right now everything is all alleged, but I think Detroit stayed true to the precedent that they had set. We saw the same thing with Cam Sutton a few years ago. As soon as legal problems became a thing, they just cut ties. They clearly don't even want it around the locker room, around the players, which I think makes sense for both parties, right? Because Terrion right now should be focused on things that are bigger than football in his world. The Lions should really only be focused on football because that's what they're there for.
Yes.
And so, it's definitely news because it hits closer to home. We're going to see it in the 24-hour cycle constantly, even though he's not with the team anymore. But at the same time, until everything plays out, feels like just another athlete who made some very poor decisions and hung out with the wrong people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I obviously hope he, gets with the right people and obviously gets it all figured out. I know he's practiced, he's had a couple workouts with a couple different teams. So do you see him playing this year, or do you kind of just see him working out with some teams? And, because from the team's perspective too, I can see is this guy going to play this year? Is there legal, troubles on the horizon? It's kind of a big gamble and any player.
Yeah. And I think that for the teams, from a team's perspective, I don't think signing him would be a very prudent move, because even if you give him a contract, you get him signed, you get him on the team, he could go on the exempt list and not be able to play. He'd
Correct.
Still be able to practice. He'd still be able to show up at the facility, but he wouldn't be able to play. So you would be paying a guy who can't play at all. And so that doesn't seem like something that many teams would want to, take a stab at, especially because it's not like he's some, minimum kind of guy. He's going to get, a middle of the road deal. He's got enough physical traits for the next people to believe in him too. So I don't imagine a team would be in a position where they would be like, yeah, let's go ahead and sign this guy. He probably won't play at all for us this year, but we just want him around.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, he's a good player. Unfortunately, he just really didn't pan out in Detroit, I think, even without this whole, situation happening. But it seems like, even I was talking to some coworkers today, the corner position for Detroit seems like it has been the one spot on the team that we just cannot hit, whether it's through trades, through the draft. Like, I don't know. Is it just the players coming in, or is it coaching? Like, where do you see it falling as far as the cornerback position?
It's probably a little bit of both. I mean, it's hard to say, right? You look at the two major draft busts at cornerback, and that's Jeff Okudah, and now Terrion Arnold joins that conversation, right? And you look at them on paper and you look at their film from college and you're like, this guy's a surefire hit. I mean, there's no way. And then it just doesn't work. So then you start looking at, coaching, but those are under different coordinators. And now Terrion had two different coordinators. And so you start to maybe think that maybe especially now, the system that Detroit runs is so difficult on the corner that it may take a different kind of guy, because there aren't a lot of teams that were running press man at the same rate that the Lions were. There aren't a lot of teams that were running a base 4-3 60% of the time. And by a lot, I mean there were none. And so the corner is basically forced out on an island. And if you don't generate a pass rush, that island has to hold up for a lot longer than most are going to be able to do. And I think here recently, the only one that I think we had a Meek who kind of stood out, but he fell off in his last year. And then Carlton Davis worked out pretty well. But you're looking for guys who have a very specific skill set and can execute at a very high level with the position they're being put in on this defense. And it's a lot to ask.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, even in Terrion Arnold's like rookie year, like, that guy was getting pass interference, it seemed like, every other play. And like you said, if they're getting put on an island, I mean, that's tough. And they're always going up against, probably the number one, number two wide receivers every game. So after a while, it's like you're asking these guys a lot. So hopefully that can all get figured out. I mean, we need to do something, whether it's sign somebody or I don't know, but there's a lot going on in that corner position. So, that kind of falls into this next thing, like the defense. Obviously, I mean, injuries have demolished us, it feels like, every single year. So hopefully they can stay healthy. We'll start with that. But,
Amen.
With us losing another cornerback, like, where are we landing? Like, is this defense going to be good, or is this offense going to have to put up like major numbers to keep us in some of these games?
I think realistically, the offense is going to have to put up major numbers. Luckily, that's not really an area where you have a lot of doubt with the Lions. But I think that the difference will be not if this defense is going to be good, but can it be a top third of the league defense? If this can be a 8, 9, 10th ranked defense, I think that the Lions will do very well this season. But when they start getting closer to that 15 to 20 range, that's when you have years like last year. And as far as cornerback goes, I mean, anyone's guess is as good as anyone else's. I mean, we saw Rock step up last year, right? And I think that it's interesting because Terrion was a known quantity, but we all felt like he was improving or going to improve, right? We had that feeling. Whereas Rock is a known quality, and we all feel like he overperformed last year, and we don't expect that from him again this year. Now, truth be told, if you just look at their PFF numbers throughout their careers, Rock has always outperformed what Terrion's done in his first 2 years in the league. So it's not like Terrion was playing at such a level that I think he's irreplaceable, but at the same time, Rock's not getting any younger. And if it doesn't go to, Rock, who's the next man up? After him, it's all unknowns. It's all question marks. We don't have, any idea how, McCreary would look on the outside again. Can Abney fill in out there? Rakestraw, he's a huge question mark. Nobody knows what he can do.
Yeah, because he's coming off injury again, correct?
Yep, 2 years in a row missed with injury.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And like I said, like, those guys are going to be guarding your number one and number two wide receivers. Like, that's going to be tough. I mean, we have seen it in years past, though. The offense can at least put up some good numbers. But, I mean, obviously, defense wins championships. So it's going to be tough, if they're giving up a field goal or a touchdown every drive. Like, that means the offense has got to do the exact same thing. And they got to keep up with some of these teams. And, I wanted to talk to you about this easy schedule that everybody's been talking about. Are you on the same level of thinking it's an easy schedule, or do you think, like, yeah, it might be easy on paper, but not necessarily on the field?
Yeah, I mean, sure, if everyone plays the exact same people, exact same way they did last year, then it's an easy schedule. But I mean, strength of schedule before, week 6 means virtually nothing. We have no idea how teams are going to look on the field. We don't know how players are going to progress. We can't, as Lions fans say, oh, Tyreek is going to take a year 2 jump. Slaw is going to take a year 2 jump, but then discount the players on the other team from taking that same year 2 jump, right? So I get that the teams that were playing didn't do well last year, right? And you should expect the Lions to perform well against whoever they're playing. And if they're not playing top tier teams, then you should expect them to do well. But I don't buy into, preseason rankings, preseason strength of schedule, because it's just that. It's just an educated guess based on past performance and how we think the offseason is gone. And you never know who's going to step up, who's going to get hurt. We definitely know. You never know who's going to get hurt.
That is true. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, even the first couple games, okay, I get it. We're playing the Saints. Buffalo is not going to be easy, and that's week 2. So,
yeah,
like you said, there's going to be some battles early on in the season. So, players might get hurt. That's tough to go against Buffalo in their new stadium week 2, and then, people are going to come out bruised and battered in that one. So, yeah, I'm glad we're kind of on the same page with that, because there's a lot of people that are like, it's going to be an easy schedule. We should be fine. But I hate to say it, we've been going in a downward trend as far as really anything. So I wouldn't say easy schedule is really a good thing to do right now, because not that the players are going to downplay it, but I feel like the fans are downplaying the schedule, and you're either going to get disappointed or you're not toward the end of the year. But yeah.
And you can't really say that, we're playing an easy schedule because we were the 4th place team, so we get a 4th place schedule. Everybody who has us on their schedule is also playing against a 4th place team.
Yeah.
Are we part of their easy schedule?
That is a good point. I never even really thought of it on that side. Yeah, that is true. That is a good point. No, I'm glad we're on the same page on that one. So, but we'll have to see. Do you think we make playoffs this year, realistically?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I'm hoping, because, like I said,
Yes.
feel like we're going in the wrong direction right now with missing the playoffs last year, which was obviously a complete shock.
And it was still shockingly close considering how bad it felt like the Lions played for a lot of the season, right? It wasn't like they were just out of it. That loss to Pittsburgh was kind of the one where we're like, oh, well, that's the end of the playoff run. But, it didn't feel like we were a playoff team 2 weeks before that.
Correct.
And so given how close it was last year and how good it felt like some other teams were playing compared to the Lions, I have confidence that, year 2 under Kelvin Shepard, some adjustments get made. I have confidence in John Morton not being part of the staff. So there's reason to have faith in the Lions' ability to kind of have some upside. But again, until, week 6, week 7, we're not going to know. And I think that's actually more true of the Lions because, given the way the back half of this season looks with the way their 3 games in 11 days shakes down right after Germany, and then the last 3 games being all division games, it's a gauntlet in the back half of the season.
Yeah, and we know how we played last year against the division. So, some of the games, when we were playing JJ McCarthy, we were making him look like Tom Brady. Even Jameis Winston, what are we doing? Those are the games that, not that again, the easy win type deal, but you can't be making these mediocre quarterbacks look like superstars. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and I think it's, it's quarterbacks that aren't afraid to just throw the ball, because if we're not getting any pressure on them, then the secondary is going to have to hold up man to man. And if you can just put the ball up there, your receivers got a shot too.
Yes, that is true. And even on both of those teams, there's good receivers on those teams. So
yeah.
I can hopefully we can figure it out, but hopefully we can make playoffs and everything like that. The one big question I have, and it kind of just, hit me within this week, is, obviously Jared Goff is our starting quarterback, will be for a couple years. do we need to start looking toward the future for a new quarterback when Goff decides to retire? Or do you think we're still years from that even happening?
So Goff is 31 right now. And his current contract goes until 2028, so that would put him at 33. So he's nowhere near retiring there. Given the performance that he's had these last 3 seasons, which put him into a top 5 quarterback spot, I would be shocked if he doesn't have an extension before 2028. So we're probably looking at like 3 years. I would be willing to bet that Goff will be the quarterback of the Detroit Lions until at least 2030.
Damn, I'd be fine with that.
And so with that in mind, I would say the earliest you would want to start really looking, if you were going to go through the draft, the earliest you would want to start looking is 2028, but probably more likely 2029, because you'd want to utilize, the length of the rookie contract to have him as the backup and learn under Goff, and then try to be able to transition, kind of like the Jordan Love style transition. But yeah, I don't think Goff is going anywhere. I think he'll get an extension. I think we're probably looking 2030, 2031, because that'll let him roll some of that dead cap money at the end of his contract, those dead years, into the new one.
Okay. All right. So it looks like you're thinking Goff's going to be here for a while, which again is fine with me. He's obviously turned this team around as well as many other players and coaches, but kind of with the, players and coaches being here and stuff, the one question I see a couple times is Dan Campbell, if for some reason they miss the playoffs this year, is it time to, start looking for a new coach? Or because of what he has done to this Detroit team, do you kind of give him a little bit of a break?
I don't think them missing the playoffs this year would put him on the hot seat. Warmer, perhaps, but I mean, not without a catastrophic collapse. If they're a 4-win team, then we've got to look at something, right? But I think that given what he has brought, not just on the field, but around Detroit sports in general, this front office has really kind of revitalized what has long been a floundering franchise. It's really culminated in that Quinn Trisha era, and it was just bad. And so the fact that the team's turned around, not only because they're winning on the field, but just in the national spotlight, the players, the Detroit sports scene, they've brought so much that I think it buys them a little bit more time. With that, I think that the other side of it is it's difficult to blame coaching beyond that first playoff run, right? You can have, all the questions you want about how the NFC Championship game was coached and called. I totally get that. I was there. So I, had the same questions. But the last 2 years, even the year when, 2024, 15-2, first round bye, a lot of us were wondering how they were pulling that off. The defense was held together with duct tape by that point. And I think the narrative changed a little bit once they finished 15-2. Once they beat the Vikings in that last game to get that first round bye, everyone was like, no, you know what? They can do this. Whereas up until that point, we were like, there's no way Amik is going to hold Justin Jefferson for a whole game, that he can't possibly do it. And so the expectations changed in that moment, right? It went from, man, I don't know how they're doing this, to, well, now they can win it all. And so we judge them based on that change in expectation. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Once they got that first round bye, you have to expect them to win that home game, especially against Washington. But then, Amik goes down on the first defensive snap of that game. And it was, just one more needle in the haystack of injuries that year. And so I think that there's been enough positive where, sure, they haven't won it all. They haven't quite gotten over that hump. But no one's going to look at that 15-2 season and be like, well, that was a failure on Dan Campbell's part. Last year, you can definitely say that John Morton was a failure on Dan Campbell's part. And I got it. It was a guy that was familiar with the system, a guy that was familiar with Campbell. You want to go with what you know, and it didn't work out. And so in that sense, sure, but the offense wasn't the problem still. It was still the defense. and a first-year defensive coordinator. And so you kind of take some of those growing pains. So I don't think that enough of this falls on Dan Campbell, or we have a long enough history of, winning where we're like, oh, we just need to change the guy to get over the hump. It just needs, a change at the helm. I don't think that Sheila's going to think that way. I don't think that Brad's going to think that way. I think they're going to want to keep the ship going and just try to keep building.
That is a very good point. Yeah, it's like you said, it's everybody kind of around Campbell that he's trying to put the pieces together and everything like that. I mean, obviously he's changed, like you said, he's changed the Lions culture. He's changed Detroit's culture so much. I mean, I'm hoping he's here for the long haul, and I'm hoping we get that Super Bowl with him. So,
Same.
Speaking of Super Bowls, do you, I know the last 4 or 5 years, it's every year, it's like, this is our year, this is our year. Like, do you think this is our year, or do you think now we're kind of in a little slight rebuild to get back to where we were?
I'm not on the Super Bowl or bust train. I think that, the people like to talk about the Super Bowl window. I do think it's open, but I don't think that it's closing quite as much as a lot of other people do. I do expect them to make the playoffs. I do expect them to win in the playoffs, but I don't think this season is a failure if they don't win the Super Bowl. Now, take that with what you will, right? Every team's goal is to win the Super Bowl.
Correct.
But I think that, if they're back in the playoffs, you always have a chance once you're there. If they, win divisional round, maybe even make it to the championship game, I think that would be slightly above my expectations for that.
Okay. All right. You said that you didn't think the window was closing. I unfortunately, am that guy that's like, I think it is closing, which is sad because like we get that 3 or 4 year window that I'm like, we might be able to do it. And, it's crazy. Obviously, this team has been not very good for the longest time. And, we get that glimpse of possibility of a Super Bowl and even, being in the playoffs. And I would hate to see it just go not right back to where it was, because I don't think we will be there with the personnel and the coaching that we have. But I really hope it's not closing, because I just want to see one Super Bowl. And I've said it on many podcasts. Like, I just even want to see one championship. I don't even really care what team it is in Detroit. I think it will be really cool if it was the Lions. I just think the fan base, people were showing out when we were 0-16. So now that we're showing that we can win double-digit, seasons, I think it's only up for sure from here. So, we can only hope. And like with some of the players we have, like I was looking on ESPN the other day, they ranked Sam Laporta number 4 on the tight ends list. And then Aiden Hutchinson was top 5 in edge rushers. Like, our players are getting, like you said, they're getting that national spotlight. They're getting out there. Like, Detroit used to be where nobody wanted to come play. Like, no primetime games. Like, I think it was last year we had quite a bit of primetime games, late games, like Thursday night games, everything. So I think we just need to keep this rolling. We got to keep this core together. And that's kind of what worries me too, is like, yeah, you want to be a family and everything, but like, you don't want that to affect the success of what this team could be going into the future, obviously with any sport.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, like you said, Sam Laporta, number 4, Hutch, number 5 for defensive ends. Sewell was number 1 for offensive tackles. Goff, number 8 for quarterbacks. Gibbs, number 2 for running backs. I think it's a reasonable expectation that St. Brown will be in the top 10 for wide receivers. And, with the exception of Goff, these are all pretty young guys, which is why I'm not really on that, Super Bowl window closing train, is that we've got a lot of guys, 26 and under that are at the top of their game. And as we've seen with, someone like Myles Garrett, a defensive lineman can just keep getting better at age 30. So it's always more difficult the older a group gets, right? But if we keep this core together, Panay, you can build an offensive line around him for, I think, the next decade still. Goff, he's, steady Eddie back there. He's going to continue to, pick defenses apart if he's got the pocket space. And that's one of the good things that I like about Goff is he's got a skill set that doesn't require a lot of athleticism. You won't see the fall off that you saw from someone like Russell Wilson, who once they can't, just create with their legs anymore, they're just an average quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, someone like Jahmyr Gibbs, he's going to take a pounding at running back. Someone like St. Brown, undersized receiver, you never know, right? But he's proven over and over again that he's tough as nails. Sam Laporta, we already have some injury concerns. But outside of the things we can't control, I think that they've done such a good job of building through the draft that they've bought themselves a longer window than people want to really give them credit for.
That is true. So you bring up some good points, like with Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously he's going to take most of the hits, most of the carries, and everything. We added Isaiah Pacheco. Do you think that's going to help Gibbs, take kind of the load off as far as, because I'm thinking Isaiah Pacheco is going to be your third and short type guy, third and medium to kind of push you through to get that first down. Do you think we'll utilize him in that way to kind of give we need Gibbs to get those long rushing yards, or do you think Gibbs will get, a big workload?
I think Gibbs will get a big workload.
Okay.
And Pacheco is an interesting guy because he is phenomenal in short yardage, but he doesn't have the power that David Montgomery had. But Pacheco has a violence to his running. He's got a really awkward running style that seems to catch tacklers off guard even still. And just watching him run, like the whole motion just seems like it shouldn't work very well. And it does for him. But he doesn't represent that complete change of pace that we have with David Montgomery because Pacheco is really fast. He's got a little bit more violence to his game, but he's not, a stocky, built running back. He's very similar build-wise to Jahmyr Gibbs. He's just a little bit more seasoned and has had a little bit more injury.
Yeah.
So I feel like Pacheco is going to actually be like a true RB2. He'll be good in short yardage situations because he always has been. But I think that there isn't going to necessarily be a rhyme or reason for when they bring him in. I think that you can just plug him in for a change of running style. And it doesn't necessarily have to be when you need power because I don't know if he brings that at quite the same level.
Gotcha. So do you think that will help or hurt the offense compared to when we had Montgomery? Because I feel like Montgomery, when we had both of them, you could play like Gibbs first half, Montgomery second half. I feel like kind of like you said, they both had the same style and you can get those good numbers out of both of those guys. Do you think, like I said, do you think this helps or hurts the offense going forward with Pacheco?
So theoretically, it can help. And here's why. And it kind of gets into a little bit of, gray area because we're talking about Drew Petzing, but Pacheco is a fantastic gap and duo runner. But in Kansas City, he was asked to run zone a lot, which isn't his strength. Now, with the offensive line we have, given the relative inexperience of some of the pieces and the type of blockers, say, Christian Mahogany and Cade Mays are, they're kind of maulers, who I think will do very well with gap and duo. And Petzing prefers a gap and duo scheme, or at least did in his last stop. So I think that if you build the offense around that style of scheme, whereas last year they ran tons of zone and it didn't work really at all, then you have Jahmyr who can make anything work. I mean, he's one step away from the end zone every time he touches the ball. But Pacheco also gets to be in a system which plays upon his strength. So you can't just key in your defense if Pacheco's in the game because he can also break one on you.
Okay. Yeah. So that definitely obviously helps because I want Gibbs obviously to get the most of the workload, but you don't want him to get hurt. And if you can throw him in there, if he tweaks something or you're like, hey, you just ran 90 yards back to back, let's give you a break here. So right. I think Pacheco's definitely going to help. I know you brought up Sam Laporta with his kind of injury history. And again, that's kind of another story that I feel like was a big thing about him being on the trade block and stuff like that around the draft time. Now it seems like he's going to be here, this year. Do you think he might be a trade piece come trade deadline, or do you think that was just kind of, you know, NFL draft talk of like the players that could potentially be gone around that time?
It's hard to tell because if you were going to trade one of the guys from that draft, Laporta would probably be my pick. I think you could get fantastic return for the value. And I don't think that Sam Laporta is easily replaceable by any means. I mean, we saw last year not only the passing game fall off without him, but the running game as well. He is a fantastic tight end, number 4, according to ESPN, in the entire league. But I think that if you're designing an offense and you look at the pieces we have, it can be done without Laporta. Now, that being said, I think that Brad Holmes has been very clear on he wants to keep all of the guys that he picked up from that draft class. He wants to sign all 4. And I believe him. And I would have no problem with Sam Laporta being here for the long run. But at some point, it does also become about the money.
Yes.
And so I think that it's interesting that, you know, both Sam Laporta and Brian Branch are coming into that time period where they can be extended, both coming off injuries. We haven't really heard contract talks for either of them this offseason. And I think that part of that may be the Lions want to wait and see what kind of player is coming back off of those injuries.
Yeah, and I can see that from their point of view. Like, you know, you don't want to give these guys these big contracts, and unfortunately, then they don't pan out as well as you want. You know, you did bring up Brian Branch, obviously coming off that ACL injury. Like, do you think he's going to, when he does come back, be the same Brian Branch from before, or do you think he's going to be better or worse?
So when he first comes back, now the Achilles happened against Kansas City, right?
I believe so.
I believe so. So we're probably looking about halfway through the season before he comes back. And historically, when you look at players returning from injury, especially with leg injuries, that first season back isn't their best. It takes time. We saw it last year with Aleem, and even he said that like there was just a separation between mentally where he was and physically where he was. Generally, it takes players another season to get back. Now, luckily for Brian Branch, speed was never his game. His instincts and football intelligence are the things that separate him from everybody else. So I think he'll still be good, but I don't think that he'll be the Brian Branch that we kind of got used to up until that Achilles injury. So I think that he'll look worse, but that doesn't mean he'll be worse.
Gotcha. And he was always a very physical player too. So like you said, that's going to kind of take him some used to, like, you're not going to be able to just come in and start, you know, really hitting people, because you got to take it slow. Obviously, you know, he wants to get right back on track, but like, you know, you don't want to re-injure what you have. So, but speaking of injuries on that side of the ball still, Kirby Joseph, what have you been hearing? Like, what is going on? Like, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, but like, is it time to cut ties? Like, is this injury severe that it's outside the like talking point of football? Like, this guy really has a bad knee injury.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Because the problem is that everything we've gotten to this point is speculation. And every time Campbell gets asked about it, it's just kind of a vague, like, oh, we'll see where he is at this point. We'll see where he is at this point. And it seems more and more like that speculation about it being a degenerative injury might be the case. And at that point, it won't ever get better. It will only be a matter of him being able to manage the pain and play with it. And maybe they already know that. Maybe that's why they're holding him out until camp. Maybe they know he's going to be on a pitch count. They don't want to start that pitch count until they absolutely have to. But it's very hard to tell right now because we haven't gotten any news, good or bad, right? Like, it's just everything is so ambiguous right now. And it's frustrating from a fan perspective because you just want to be able to, cheer for the guy, root for the guy coming back. But right now you have no idea if you're going to see Kirby Joseph or Chuck Clark.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, I mean, at some point you have to be honest with not only like the organization, but with your fans. Like, if he can't come back because of this injury, I mean, he won't be the only person that's ever had to retire or can't play due to injury. So it's not like this is something that's not common. Obviously, doesn't happen often, but and it's tough because you go back to like if he like when he did mess it up the first time, like if he didn't continue to play on it, would it be where it's at? Or was this something that was potentially always going to happen from the beginning, which hopefully not. But yeah, that's the problem is there's way too many questions going around. And like, I mean, we're getting close to training camp and stuff. Like there's got to be an answer at some point. And I feel like the fans, like you said, deserve an answer. And I mean, I guess really too, like the team needs to know, like, hey, is Kirby Joseph going to be back there? Like, what are we doing? Because like you said, corners, we're already thin there. Brian Branch is hurt. Like, there's a lot of questions, and a lot of these guys, I think, don't know who's really going to be on the field with them.
Yeah, and I think it's especially interesting because we've heard a lot of talk this offseason about the nickel corner, right? About we're going to use it more. It's a change in defensive philosophy, as much as they like to not say it's a change. I mean, they ran 4-3 base 60% of the time last year. That is a ridiculous number. And you kind of saw the writing on the wall with the 4-3 base when they made really no move to replace Anzalone.
Yes.
They don't have that guy who's a pure coverage linebacker anymore. But generally, when you're going to switch something like that, you kind of put a little bit more weight onto that nickel or onto a box safety. But we don't know who our safeties are right now. Now, we know we have guys that can play the box, Harper, Isian, but both can also play the slot. And if we need the nickel out there and we need two more safeties that weren't on the roster last year in the back, it changes things again. So I agree. It's very difficult because right now there are way more questions than answers. And in a couple of weeks of training camp, theoretically, we'll start getting those answers with who we see where and what the alignments look like. But, right now it's difficult to tell not only who's going to be out there, but how many of them we're even going to need.
Yeah, that's true. And like you brought up with Anzalone, like I really wish we would have brought him back. I felt like he was the glue to that defense. Obviously Hutchinson and everything too, but like he was definitely the guy that like got that defense together and kind of put everybody where they needed to be on that defense. So yeah, there's a couple people I wish we would have brought back. And we kind of talked about Penei Sewell earlier, like him getting moved over now, obviously back to the position he played in college. Like, I know a lot of people are kind of worried about it. They're like, that's a new position, but like, it's really not a new position for him. I mean, he did that in college. So do you think he's going to be fine? Or do you think, I mean, obviously, I think the first couple snaps, he might have a little bit of issues because he's so used to playing the other side. But where do you kind of stand with him and getting moved over?
So for Penei, I think that, there is some transition time, right? Because everything is backwards. You step with your opposite foot, you lead with your opposite hand. And so he's built up some tendencies over the last few years, and he'll have to switch that back to playing on the left. Do I think he'll be able to? Absolutely. I mean, Penei is an absolute freak of an athlete. Honestly, pound for pound, he might be one of the best athletes in the entire league. I mean, seeing a guy do what he does at his size is nothing short of incredible. And I don't know if that fact alone quite gets the love that it deserves. I mean, seeing him lead blocking 20 yards down the field for Jameer on a screen pass and, just the fact that he can get there at his size is crazy.
Even when they throw him the ball, I'm like, dude, watch out. I mean, he's a big guy, but he can play the receiver there for a minute.
And that's why, like I always joke, but I mean, it's half true. If you told me they were moving Penei to tight end, I would assume he'll be fine. He can do it.
Yeah.
So I don't have any real concern about him switching over to the left. I know that, here recently, even in the national media, we've heard, more negativity coming out about Penei. I think Mike Clay had him as the 11th best tackle in the league. And so, more people, he's got short arms. He can't pass block very well. The same things that we heard coming out of college. And, he's an all-pro, Pro Bowler over and over again.
Yeah.
Consistently ranked 1 or 2 number tackle in the league. So, no, I think you'll move him over to the left. Will it look as good as he did it right away? Maybe not. But I still think that, when you take the number one right tackle and move him over to the left, you still got a top 10 tackle on the left side.
Yeah, and you're guarding Goff's blind side, if I'm correct, if I'm thinking of everything, which is definitely going to help because that'll give Goff more time. We've seen it before. When he gets a little bit of pressure, he, kind of gets a little nervous there. So I think that'll definitely help, and with Goff, like I'm going to ask you this because I'm, everybody talks about mobile quarterbacks. Do you think with Goff not being as mobile, that kind of holds back the team a little bit on what some things they can do, or because we have Jahmyr Gibbs and the talent at wide receivers, like we don't necessarily need a mobile Jared Goff?
I think the only way it limits the team is that you can't run your quarterback as often. And I mean, it's not like Jared Goff is incredibly slow. I mean, he's not a very mobile guy, but we've seen way slower be way more successful, right?
True.
The one that always is, Tom Brady is the best to ever do it. And that guy was so slow that anytime he started running, even if there were no defenders on the screen, you didn't know if he was going to get a yard. And so I think that Goff has enough mobility. I mean, even last year we saw him make some pretty darn good throws rolling out to his right. He has enough mobility to buy himself time. Where I think that people get frustrated with Goff, and sometimes it gets confused with mobility, is there are times when Goff doesn't do very well in that 4-yard by 4-yard box, right? Like when the pocket starts to collapse, sometimes he just throws it to a linebacker. And people are like, oh, he needs to move his feet. And it's not that he needs to run, but he needs to be able to take that one step left, one step up that we see the great quarterbacks do. And I think that that'll be a big difference maker for him. And we got little glimpses of it in OTAs. He was doing a lot of footwork drills in the videos that the Lions posted. But I think if he gets a little bit better feel for when the pocket is collapsing, then he can, kind of get rid of that narrative that he can't throw well under pressure, which the numbers have already shown that he can do just fine under pressure. But he needs to be able to give himself a cleaner throwing lane and not have those games where he throws 5 interceptions.
Yeah, that, and like I feel like, he throws it right in the dirt as soon as like he feels any sort of pressure. But like you said, if he just had that extra step to the left, step to the right, like, okay, you might not be able to get a 30 or 40-yard throw, but even if you can move to the left or the right and get an extra 5 or 10 yards, like that eventually will build up, and that'll help the team long term. So, lot to look forward to for this Detroit year. What other things, like I said, I know you really have followed behind the scenes of Detroit Lions and stuff. Like, what's kind of your overall take of them?
Right now, a lot is depending on what we see out of this defense. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I really don't have any concerns about the offense. We saw last year them have a lame duck offensive coordinator, a poor blocking scheme up front, a center that they didn't think they were going to go into the season with, and they still had the 5th ranked offense in the NFL, right? So I'm not worried about those pieces. But at the same time, we saw that 5th ranked offense go 9-8 as a team because of that defense.
Yes.
And we did it last year with a first-year defensive coordinator in Kelvin Shepherd. And like I was talking about with that playoff loss to Washington, right, how the expectations change. For the first few games of the season, people were talking about Kelvin Shepherd might be going after head coaching gigs after this year with what he was doing all the way through that Tampa Bay game. I mean, the Legion of Whom was just an incredible thing to watch. Nick Whiteside looked like an all-star out there. But then as teams started to get tape on Kelvin Shepherd's tendencies, as pieces started to go down and he wasn't able to adjust very well, as you might expect a first-year coordinator to not be able to, then it all started to come crashing down. And suddenly it was like, hey, we need to replace Kelvin Shepherd this offseason. Right? And the truth is generally somewhere in the middle. He's neither a head coach nor is he a bum. But you have to expect there to be growth year over year. You can't expect it from the players and not expect it from the coaches. And so I expect Kelvin Shepherd to come out with more adaptability, to learn from what happened. And we saw little slivers of it last year when they started suddenly playing zone at the end of the year, and it worked. So I would like to see him take that step, which I don't think we ever saw Aaron Glenn do. which might be why we're so ready to just kind of throw it in on defensive coordinators, because Aaron Glenn was very like stick to his style of doing things.
Yes.
He wanted players to do it his way. He wanted everything the way that he outlined it. And I think Kelvin Shepherd showed a little bit of that last year and then kind of relented towards the end of the season where he was like, all right, we're going to have to do something different. And he said all the right things, but as we both know, saying all the right things and showing the product in the field are two very different things. So I am paying close attention to this defense, especially the linebackers, and that'll be really my focus in camp.
Yeah, and I think, like you said with Kelvin Shepherd, like I think he just needed to kind of open it up to see what he can do and what Dan Campbell's like. Look, dude, I gave you this role for a reason, so you need to, eventually when you can open it up and go ahead and do it, do it. And like you said, there was glimpses last year that he opened it up and there was success. So hopefully now, another year under his belt, he can really open it up early in the season. And then if he needs to make the tweaks and changes and everything, he's got a full season to be able to do that all. So we'll have to see. I mean, unfortunately, we got another offensive coordinator, so we'll see how he does. I mean, that's the one thing I worry about. Yeah, that's what I worry about too, is like, is this going to be our guy? Are we going to be a couple years of new offensive coordinators? Like, obviously Goff can handle it because he's been in the league long enough, but I mean, there's other young guys. I mean, JMO, Tesla, like these guys want to get used to a coordinator every year and not have to. I mean, we've seen it with other teams that have a new head coach every year or a new coordinator. Like that's tough for these players to learn what's going on when everything is changing year after year.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's literally a whole new language, right? Is when a new offense comes in, you change what things are called, you change, the way alignments work, you change your motions. And so Goff, like you said, no concern there, which is, again, impressive and shows how good Goff really is that every motion, every assignment, everything is on Goff's brain, every snap. But young guys, the receivers, especially someone like Tesla, who coming in, probably his worst attribute was how clean his routes were. He wasn't a great route runner at the beginning of last year, and it got better as the year went on. But if suddenly you change all that, right? This route only goes 7 yards now instead of 9. When I say this, this is a dig. So it is important to have some continuity in the language that you're speaking, especially to the young guys, and some continuity just overall in the way that it executes. Even for the non-skill positions like the offensive line, you saw what happened when they switched from gap heavy 2 years ago to zone heavy last year. The offensive line looked lost out there week 1 versus Green Bay. They looked awful.
Yeah.
And you had guys who were used to doing things one way. They were good at doing things in gap and duo. And then you were like, no, we're changing the scheme. We're going to run this new offense. And they just couldn't do it very well.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, obviously, as a professional athlete, you have to learn how to, like you said, learn how to redo everything. But, I mean, that's with anything. Like, yeah, if you're consistently doing something for 17, 18 weeks, and then the next year it's, okay, throw that all away, throw the playbook out, here's a new one. Like, that's tough. So hopefully everything can stay consistent here this year. Dan Campbell, I wanted your take on this. Like, I know he has those moments where he's like, I'm doing it. Like, everybody's saying one thing, but I'm going to do the other. Like, I think he needs to learn that, like, essentially there's a time and a place to go for the fourth down, go for the field goal. Like, what have you seen over the last couple of years with Dan Campbell? Like, are you okay with some of the decisions he's made, or is there sometimes that you're like, dude, like, points are points, man, whether you want to go for it or not?
So the kind of the mantra I've always lived by when it came to Dan Campbell is that I can't celebrate it when it works and be angry when it doesn't, right? Like, I have to take
Fair enough.
I have to be able to, accept that they live by the sword and die by the sword. And so does part of me hope that he kind of comes to a happy medium? Sure, because there are times when they go for it on fourth down, I'm like, I don't think I would do that right here. and they make it. And I'm like, I still don't think that was the right call. Yeah, like I get it that it works, but like maybe not, But at the same time, I mean, you can't argue with Dan Campbell's wins added. He's consistently in the top third of the league for coaches in wins added based on his decision making. So you're always going to have hindsight when you look at it, right? But I think there are some plays where even you and we're not on the sidelines. I'm not a coach. I like to think I know about football, but at the same time, I would also like to hope that Dan Campbell knows a lot more than I do about it, right? And so when you look at it and you're like, I feel like the percentages aren't there on this one. Like I, don't want to go completely with analytics, but maybe, on your own 27-yard line, 4th and 5 is go ahead and punt. But, Dan Campbell maybe thinks the same thing and thinks the defense is thinking the same thing. So, I'm just a guy who talks in front of a camera, and I'll always have the benefit of hindsight when I give my opinion on what he does. But I have to be able to say that if I'm going to be happy when it works, then I've got to accept when it doesn't.
Yeah, that is a good point. I didn't even think of it like that. And kind of like you said, like we're on the sidelines. So like when we see like the replays and like it in slow motion, like we as fans are like, I don't know if I would have done that, or you got to see where you are on the field and this and that. Like these guys are making these decisions right on the fly. They don't have, oh, okay, we do the play, we see instant replay. Now let's redo the play again. Like that's where we kind of and I like your point there. Like, yeah, if we're gonna be happy when it works, we have to realize that like it's not gonna work. It might work 9 out of 10 times, and there's always gonna be that one time that it doesn't. So
right.
That is a good point. Yeah, and again, like you said, I mean, he's obviously a coach for a professional team for a reason. So, he might not always know what he's doing, but obviously he's knows what he's doing because he's in the position he is.
I would go crazy if I weren't able to think that he knows what he's doing better than I know what he's doing.
Yes, for sure. Let's kind of quickly transition. I just want to kind of talk about a little bit more sports here on the NBA side. Obviously, I know you're a big football guy. How much of NBA do you watch? Do you follow it a little bit, or is it more NFL for you?
So the way I describe myself and my fandom is that I'm a football fan, but when it comes to basketball, I'm a Pistons fan.
Okay.
So football, I'll watch any football. I'll pick apart any game, college, high school, pro, any of it. I love football. Basketball, once the Pistons were out of the playoffs, I forgot there even was a playoffs.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where my allegiance lies.
Okay. All right. Well, then that's pretty good because obviously, Jalen Duren has been a big name that's kind of floating around Detroit right now of what he's doing, what money he's getting. How much of that have you followed? And do you think that he deserves the max contract, or, because of kind of how he played in the postseason, like did he kind of hurt himself as far as getting that contract?
I think he did hurt himself. And here's the thing. I get him betting on himself. He's only 22, right?
Yes.
And he's, 6'11". Those don't just grow on trees. But a max contract is the most value you can give to that person possibly, right? So that means they're irreplaceable. I don't think he showed that. During the regular season, averaged a double-double. He was fun to watch. But at the same time, he does have a guy who is a max contract player who's creating for him every single possession in Cade Cunningham.
Yes.
So do I think that if you take Jalen Duren off of the Pistons and plug in another guy at center, another tall guy, that the Pistons could still be good because Cade Cunningham is at the helm? Absolutely. Do I think if you take Cade Cunningham off the Pistons and Jalen Duren is your focal point now, that the Pistons would still be good? I do not. And I think that the NBA kind of in itself, gave a sign from the heavens, because if Victor Wembanyama, who third in MVP, defensive player of the year, the face of the NBA, he is irreplaceable.
Yes.
He took his max contract on the rookie pay scale instead of the super max. Jalen Duren, you don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I mean, Yeah, like you said, Wemby is not replaceable. I mean,
No.
there's no 7'4", 7'5" guys that can play point guard walking around, the
Yeah,
streets here.
he's 1-of-1 for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of worried about it. Would I be sad if he left? Yes and no. Because like you said, he is replaceable, unfortunately, to an extent. Um, but the offseason moves that this Detroit team has been doing kind of worries me. Like, last week I had Kevin on and he said it's not, there's not necessarily a rebuild, but a retooling. Which I kind of get, but also like we won 60 games. Why are we not running this team back to potentially get to the NBA finals, which we should have this year? But
I feel like not a rebuild, but retooling is a much nicer way of saying what I said. Whereas I feel like with the moves they made, they're like same, but different, right? It's different guys, so we'll have a different result. But we didn't do anything where you look at it and go, okay, they're better now.
yes.
And I think that's kind of the stumbling block, right? Is because when you watched them last year, you noticed Cade Cunningham, and that's because no matter who else was, playing second fiddle to Cade, Cade was still creating for them. And how long can he do that? How long can you do it without another guy who can make his own shot?
Yes.
And I get that, they bring in Isaiah Joe, who has a little bit more ability to create than, say, Duncan Robinson, marginally better defender than Duncan Robinson. But I really feel like if Detroit would have really gone after a second guy who you can get the ball in his hands in the half court and defenses have to care, that would have gone a much longer way of retooling to the same specs they had before.
Yeah, and what worries me is like, obviously when the Pistons were so bad for Cade's first couple years, like there was glimpses that I could see Cade leaving. And now like, yeah, we've shown a little bit of progression, but like I think if we don't show even more progression that we might unfortunately lose Cade, which would be horrible to see. But yeah, like you said, like Cade is a one guy. He can't do a whole season back to back to back doing what he's doing. I mean, he's a great player and everything, but like
Yes.
that's what worries me too. Like, I mean, we saw it in the playoffs and a little bit of the regular season. As soon as they double team Cade, he has nowhere to throw it. Yeah, there's four other guys on that court, but he does. Yeah, he doesn't trust. He trusts them, but like you can't trust them to go and score
Right.
20 or 15 points a night when Cade has an off night or needs an off night for that matter.
Yeah, and I think the closest thing you have right now is Dennis, right? And he's fun to watch play in the fact that he's either going to show you something amazing or show you one of the worst turnovers you've seen on the court ever.
Yes.
And so, maybe again, someone who takes a step and maybe that's what they're banking on. But it doesn't have to be a superstar, right? Like you don't need to go out and get an aging Kevin Durant or, wait for LeBron to do his next NBC interview to tell us where he's going to go play. You just need a guy who, when the ball is in his hands, defenses have to look over there.
Yeah. They just need to. Yeah, there's got to be that second guy, like we've said, that can get Cade a little bit of a break and that he can look to drop 20 or 25 points a night so he doesn't have to drop 40 a night, which seems like he had to do every game of the playoffs, which is ridiculous. So, I don't know. I mean, I've kind of looked at these young guys that we drafted. I've been watching a little bit of the summer league. I think they'll be able to pan out. I mean, honestly, that the second round pick guy that we got, not that he's going to be Jalen's replacement, but like we only got Paul Reed right now. So he might have to step into that role and be that backup center if for some reason Jalen Duren does leave.
I mean, in the playoffs was one of the voices saying that B-Ball Paul should be the starting center. So
yes. Oh yeah.
If it comes down to that, then I'm not going to be too concerned. I think that Paul Reed can definitely contribute. So yeah.
Yeah, and what kind of worries me, like with the playoffs, is JB Bickerstaff's coaching. Like there were some questionable times that I'm like with Paul Reed for play the guy. If he's consistently doing what he needs to do, yeah, he's not going to put up doubles every single night. But if Jalen Duren is not doing what you're expecting Jalen Duren to do, you got to switch it up, because worst case scenario, Paul Reed doesn't do anything, and then fine, you throw Jalen Duren back in there. So like, you got the moves, you have the play, like the pieces. Like, I don't know. It goes back again to coaching. Like, obviously he's an NBA coach for a reason, but so was Monty Williams, and he didn't pan out very well. So
very true.
Yeah, I don't know. So, how do you feel? We can kind of end it on this though. Like, how do you feel about the Pistons? Do you think we're going to be another playoff team, or do you think I don't think we're going 60 wins again. I was thinking like 5th, 6th, 7th seed last year, so I was shocked obviously that we were number 1. But where do you see them being at next year?
I see them still making the playoffs. I see them being a good team. And of course it depends on, things like Dennis, on things like Paul Reed, or, Jalen Duren, if he decides that he wants to put up points all the time. But I think that they will be a playoff team. And, the old saying is, if once you're in the dance, anything can happen. But basketball being a series and not a single game, I think the better team usually wins.
Yes.
So I think that they'll be a playoff team. I don't know if I see them pushing for the Eastern Conference Finals unless another piece steps up. Because I think that last season we saw what happens when, a team who's overachieving goes against a team who's playing playoff basketball and has the 5 guys that can all compete on the floor. And right now, I don't think that the Pistons have 5 guys, or didn't have 5 guys competing on the floor together in the playoffs.
Yeah. Looks like Tim here. I could play center for the Pistons. Oh, geez. I don't know, Tim. I don't know if you could compete with those guys.
You just got to get out of Cade's way. That's all you got to
do. Yeah. Just let him do his thing. Matt, I just want to say, thank you for coming on. I'm a big sports guy and everything like that, but seeing your videos and how you break down everything, and even tonight, the way you talk football and everything, the X's and O's of everything. So it's really cool to know somebody that knows that. I wish I could dive into sports like that more. But that's why there's other people that can do that and kind of teach everybody the X and O's of everything. So again, I appreciate you coming on. I definitely will have you on again soon. Why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff and tell everybody where they can find you at?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure being here talking to you about sports. I'll come back anytime. It's been a great time. People can find me at Don't Know Grit on all of your favorite social networks, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of the above. I post content daily about the Lions, even through the entire offseason. So if you're looking to get your fix, come see me. And when we get into training camp, we'll really start deep diving this defense, both players and positions. So I'm looking forward to it. Just a couple more weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be here before you know it. I mean, these weeks are flying by. So I feel like football's been gone for a while, but it also it really just ended. So I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you and kind of throughout the season see what you think, not only the Lions, but what the NFL is doing and how these teams are going. So thank you again for being on, and thank you everyone for tuning in, for commenting. It's always a blast talking sports with everybody, and I appreciate you guys and the support and everything. So thank you guys again for catching up with Cody. Peace.